and welcome along to another episode and the start of a brand new season from this FM20 story with Dorking Wanderers with me, Daniel. It's season 7 episode 1 and today it's a big transfer special. We've got a huge revolution of the squad to talk about, all of the ins and outs over the summer, a few from staffing changes as well. We've got a little bit more that may be happening later on in the window, but either way we've got loads of action and ins and outs to get through today, so that's going to be the prime focus of this episode. And of course, since you are with me then, we've had a massive bit of rocking news in the head coach. That's our other series, which is every other day at 4:30. You'll see the latest episode was out yesterday, and there was some big news in that one, so if you haven't seen it yet, do go back and check it out. I'll put a link to that episode in the eye above. But if you are enjoying the series and looking forward to another season, please do put a thumbs up on the video, it really does make a difference. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe for daily FM20 content from this long-term story with Dorking Wanderers and our other head coach series and director of football challenge. So there's not much more we can do to hold things up. I guess you can see a bit of the news on the front screen there. A few ins and outs news, probably not the biggest ones covered on this screen, but more importantly, we're back in the black financially, and that suggests that something's gone well over the summer, and there's some surprising news towards the end of the window too. So as you can see, there's still a little bit of activity going on, mostly in terms of centre-halves potentially joining the club. There's a very good reason for that. It's a bit unexpected, but we'll get to it in a moment. But let's go and start with the release players to see who's left the club this summer on a free transfer. So quite a long list on the release players, not particularly surprising. We spoke about a lot of them leaving the club, some of those youngsters who had been out on loan, and also our first lot of youth intakes that have come through over 2 or 3 years. None of them really good enough, so they've all been released too. So we can ignore most of these going down the bottom here. But we've got this top sort of 10 that we've got to go through. How many is it? It is exactly 10. So that's a good guess, isn't it? Let's go and have a look at those. So Grant Smith, a backup keeper last year, 87 league appearances though, helped us to League 2 promotion. We really deserve to give him a bit of credit. At 31 now, he's not found a new club, but we're happy to see him on his way. He was unhappy all of last year, but still was a pretty good servant for us. Terrell Whittaker, a legend of the club, 71 league goals in 139 appearances, crucial to our promotions from both the National League and League 2, was among the top scorer in the league in both of those seasons. So 26 goals in the National League winning campaign, 25 in the season where we got promoted from League 2, and 17 to help us to League 2 safety the year before, and even chipped in with 3 last year as well. A good player, but we're happy to see him out as he's just not good enough for this level, and now we're going with a front one rather than a front two. Him and Presley unfortunately both casualties. So Presley out on loan last year at Fylde, we were expecting to sell him anyway. Unfortunately he's going on a free because of that, but 49 league goals in 145 appearances, another one that will be crucial in the memory of this series, helping us to promotion from 2 different leagues, a really key player along the way. And then next is the man we ideally wanted to keep, Sam Sherrin, who we could still have done with now, to be honest. He's gone to Oldham on a free transfer. We released him after 77 league appearances, 5 goals, a decent spell for us. Played a fair few games last season in League 1, 27 appearances and started half the games in the league. A really good player for us with a good average rating. Always performed well, no complaints with him. Had quite a few problems with injuries though, and unfortunately he's just not good enough for League 1 level, and you can see that from the fact he's gone down to League 2. Let's quickly go through the other ones then. Ryan Broom was with us for 2 years, 74 league appearances and 10 goals, helped us to promotion and steady the ship in League 1, just not good enough for this level though. So he's gone back to Morecambe, who I think are playing in League 2. They are, so he's back at his natural level, and at 28 I'm sure he'll have a fruitful career. He's got a fair few years left in him yet. And then Jordan Zamura, the left back, he's gone as well after 112 league appearances, a crucial player in our National League promotion, a very good player in our first couple of League 1 seasons as well, but last year it was just a step too far for him, and like so many of the squad, we've just had to let them go now. The National League players in particular, just not quite good enough for League 1 level. David Parkhouse is another one who's gone, 50 league appearances, 19 goals for us, very good in that promotion winning campaign. Him and Whittaker tore up the competition, but last season after a promising start he just faded away, and he was always going to be leaving this summer. Kevin Cavan has probably done the best of all the ones we've released, after a few years on loan, after initially being good for us. 43 appearances, most of those in the National League South. In fact, I think all of them were bar a couple. In League 2 he had 1 year with us and played a few games, otherwise he was a non-league specialist. He's gone to Boston in the National League, but he's actually earning more than all of our players with the exception of John King. £2,800 a week, fair play to him if he can get it, and now I know why these players wanted a wage rise with us, because they've been offered so much to go elsewhere. And then two more, Paul McGowan, who played a few for us back in the day, 12 league appearances, but he's been out on loan ever since. He's now gone to Plymouth as a fringe player. And then Jeremiah Watson, we bought in last year, on loan at Nuneaton, didn't get a great deal of football. A good young player, has gone to Havant and Waterlooville now, but the potential won't get him to League One standard. So all those players going out on loan, in addition to Johnson, who we bought in at the start of last season, a bit like Watson, but nowhere near as good, and he was always going to be on his bike this summer. So let's go to the main news. That's the transfers in and out. Of course, they're the bits you want to see, and you can tell from the amount of players we released, there's going to be a lot of action, and we managed to make a transfer profit for the 4th year in a row. So here we go, it's a pretty active screen compared to normal, particularly the transfers out, 6 players going for fees. You can see from the last two why we're now looking for centre-halves, both of our planned backup centre-backs for this year. So both Kane Williams, who came back from loan in the summer and was going to be one of our backup centre-halves, alongside Kieran Brown, who played both left-back and centre-back for us last year. They were both backups but have chosen to move on. One of them was just an offer too good to refuse. The other one, Kieran Brown, slightly unhappy. At 27, we just had to let him go, and we're trying to bring in replacements for them now. But aside from that, we've nearly filled all the gaps in the squad. A bit of a blend of youth and experience, just a tiny bit of experience in there to go with it. We're trying to replace a few of those influential members of the squad, and I think we've managed to do so this year. And of course, we had those 5 that were already pre-agreed at the top. They were just youngsters we were taking a bit of a gamble on. But let's start with the outs, most of them expected. I think bar them last 2, they were all on our list of players to go out. Otherwise, it's some of the loanees for players that we bought in the summer, so no real disappointment there. So let's look at the first 4. Connor Simpson, he's gone on to Burton for 12.5 grand. He was worth more, but he was on fairly big wages, so we just needed to get him off the books. And Burton have taken a punt on him on a slightly lower wage, and after 20 appearances, he moves on to Burton Albion. Then Tyrese Fauna's another player, £8,000 he's gone off to Walsall. He wasn't necessarily on our list of players out last summer, but he just wasn't good enough as we got a lot of good central midfielders in, and in the end it was a good option for him to move on. Then another one that was potentially going to stay this summer, Max Dodd's gone on loan to Swindon. Just 2-star ability when he came back into the first team picture, and we've got 6 better central midfielders, so he's going to move on. One of the new players we signed in June surprised us. He had a higher average rating than we expected, and that meant that Dodd was surplus to requirements. And 2 more permanent sales. Callum Wright was the first, £16,000 off to Plymouth Argyle, a good professional, 68 appearances he made for us, a huge number of those were off the bench actually. So in the first couple of years, 24 off the bench, 16 off the bench and 16 again. Only actually started 12 of those league games for us, but either way he's made a really big impression at the club. Then Craig McGinty's gone to Sunderland of all teams, a big offer for him. He's going to be loan listed there, but over £20,000, a good deal for us. We had hoped he'd be our FM20 Owen Jack, but unfortunately it just wasn't to be. We knew when we got him really it wasn't going to happen, and he's moved on to try and get his career back on track. Then the 3 youngsters we're going to skip for now, they've all gone on loan to non-league teams, all of them signed in the summer, so we'll look at them on the ins instead. And then the 2 big ones that have come along this week, Kieran Brown first, he was unhappy, MK Dons and Crew both put in bids. This one was the biggest one, so we sold him on. A good player, but not good enough to reject nearly 100 grand. And then Kane Williams, the big disastrous one, it came out of the blue, we were just so surprised by it. There was no interest in him, then suddenly this offer came along, 350 grand in upfront money from Rotherham, and more importantly 50% sell-on clause for his next transfer, so even if they don't end up selling him on, that's likely to be available to buy out at some point. We just got another 150 grand for Thomas Anthony. You remember the left back we sold a couple of years ago? Let's go and look at him. He's a player that we obviously had a few years back, sold on to Barnsley I think for just under £500,000, and we got another 150 grand out of him as a result, so another good one with a good bit of business. And we know those sell-on fees can be so crucial to our lower league clubs, and we're going to work them into all of the big youngsters transfers to make sure we get as much money as possible. The last part of this episode is of course the ins, but we've got a couple of bits of housekeeping to do before then. We've been allowed to have an extra coach, and we've put in a bid for a couple more as well. One more just to round off the team. We've got a new fitness coach because Ben Dixon wouldn't sign a new deal. He's currently the Trinidad and Tobago international fitness coach, but 16 fitness and really good motivation too. A good name for us to be able to bring in at the club, and we're trying to get one more coach just to round things off. Mark Noble, the under 18 assistant manager, signed a new deal, as did everyone else from manager at the under 18s and 23s, also the assistant manager and a few of the coaches and head of youth development, so everything's good news on that front. And our new scouting team's looking really good across the board now, so there's plenty of positive signs off the pitch on that front. But let's finish with the ins, 13 to get through in addition to the 3 players that are staying on loan. So of course we've got John King, Joe Thompson and Jack Walker, the centre half, who are staying with us, and they've been joined by all of these players. So Willie Bowie was the surprising one. He'd been pre-agreed in January by a director of football, just put in a bid for him as a free agent. As central midfielder and right midfielder, he's useless at crossing and dribbling, so won't play on the right for us. But a really solid midfielder, 2.5 star ability, 4 star potential. He's leapfrog Max Dodd as our 6th choice in midfield. We're still going with that flat midfield 3, so he'll suit that down to the ground, and I've got really high hopes for this lad moving forward. And Stephen Jones was the first of the 4 released players from English Premier League clubs. You can see he's gone out on loan to Dulwich Hamlet already. A decent player, 2 star ability, lots of potential, can play naturally at centre half or central midfield. More a central midfielder though, so we'll see how he does. I'm a bit worried about his unambitious personality. And Brian Dack from Arsenal, a right midfielder. Same boat, he's gone on loan out to Fylde. We've had good success there in the past, the likes of Kane Williams being a prime example, so hopefully he can develop nicely too. Oliver Deadfield is 3rd. He's a goalkeeper, young one from Everton. 1.5 ability, 4 potential. No one wants to loan him out yet, but he's going to be our 3rd choice keeper. A really good player. He's not got the composure yet. Mentally he's very young at heart, but otherwise he's doing pretty well for us so far, and technically he's got the attributes to become a decent keeper. And then finally, before we get on to the big first team additions, Glenn Foyston, who's been loaned in from Chelsea. You can see he's gone to Canvey Island since. A central defender, he's got decent attributes across the board. 1.5 star ability, a bit younger at the age of 18, and he's got 4 star potential as well, so an opportunity to make it as a Football League player. Just like Kane Williams, we'd love to make a profit on some of these, certainly worth the low money gamble each year, and if they keep going out on loan and having their wages paid, there's no real financial outlay for us to worry about at all. We've got 8 more names coming in, a few familiar ones at that, and some really exciting ones for me as well. You can see 2 of the Smiths from last year, just to keep things confusing. Jake Hughes we've had here before as well, but let's go through all of them in order. Mark King, the first one. Director of football found him on loan from Leeds. He's going to play alongside our man Jack Walker, a centre half with 3.5 star ability, 5 star potential, Scottish under 21 international, really solid attributes across the board to be fair, and he's going to be a good centre half partner this year, and I hope if he stays fit that will solve all of our problems. We're getting him working on getting rid of that dives into tackles. We know that can be a bit of a hazard at this level, and another player like Dowie, who came through at Ayr United, a really positive club for developing good talent, but he's going to be an absolute superstar this year, and I hope he'll form a brilliant partnership with Walker. Then at left back we've got a new backup, Jake Hughes. He's replacing Zamura in the squad and was here a couple of years ago, you may remember. We had him on loan from Forest back in the day, didn't make many appearances, was actually behind Zamura in the pecking order then. It was just after Anthony was sold in the January window, and Hughes came in and filled out the squad for us. But he's got 2.5 star ability, 4 star potential, not the best natural fitness, which is something we worry about, but otherwise he's a really solid player across the board and a good backup for us to look forward to in the future. No outlay for him. You can see bar Matt Smith we've not paid for anyone, so that's really good for us. There's no financial responsibility, and all of them are on fairly manageable wages too. Jake Hughes just over £1,000 a week. The next one is the big one, of course. Matthew Smith from Derby. We talked about him after his injury, and again he's had a knock during pre-season, so I'm a bit worried he might be getting injury prone, but otherwise he's been absolutely fantastic every time he's been here. 164 appearances, a fan favourite, a team leader, everything we needed to join the club this summer, and his average rating's always been among the best. I think he's been in the player of the season vote every single year, and if you look at him now, we got him for just £2,000 a week as he was being released from Derby. 2-year deal, relatively low risk, good vision, good passer of the ball, will fill that deep line playmaker role beautifully, and again his fitness is a little bit of a cause for concern. We've got so many good midfielders now, I just don't need to worry about it at all. And alongside Smith and Bowie, the other one that we were talking about is Cole McKinnon. You may remember he was in our list of players to sign in January. He was one of those when we had that weird thing with our director of football and chairman, where it said we had the transfer budget, but then we didn't have enough money to complete the deals. But 3-star ability, 4-star potential, just under £2,000 a week for McKinnon. Only got him on a 1-year deal after being released from Brighton. 2 under-21 caps for Scotland as well. He came through at Rangers and went to Brighton and made an appearance, and now he's here to be competing for our midfield slot. A natural deep line playmaker too, so will be the natural backup to Matthew Smith, and he'll probably get a few games due to Smith's poor fitness, so it should help his development this season no end. 4 more to go, and we've got a bit more experience to talk about next. Just like Matthew Smith, the 24-year-old, Jonathan Mitchell, a 30-year-old goalkeeper, just gone down to 2.5-star ability actually, was 3-star when we signed him, but slightly better than Campbell as number 1, and a player I remember from being on loan at Luton many years back. A good goalkeeper, came through through at Derby, played for the likes of Burnley and Northampton in this save as well. But a good goalkeeper, solid across the board, experienced, professional personality. He's got everything we want at this level and will compete with Harry Campbell for the number 1 slot. Next is a player we had here last year on loan. He actually got harmed a bit towards the end of last season because we had too many loan players and couldn't fit him in the matchday squad, and he's the only one we paid a transfer fee for this year. So £21,000 for Matt Smith, solid left back, we know all about him, 3-star ability, 5-star potential, still only 19 years of age, so I'd imagine he's one we might make a big profit on. Got a really good fitness, good personality, going to be the first choice ahead of Jake Hughes to start with, and there's plenty of good news for him this season, and we got a 3-year deal, so he should get a big sell-on fee. Then the penultimate signing so far is Callum Dalton, and this is probably the most frustrating one of the summer. Reminds me of Matthew Smith about 3 or 4 years ago. We were desperate to get him on a permanent. We had a bid accepted of about £40,000. I think he was at Norwich, if I remember. He was at Norwich, but he's gone to Stoke on a permanent, and we've now loaned him in for the season because he's just that good already. 3-star ability, 5-star potential. Some of the coaches giving him 3.5 stars of ability, although most of those aren't as good at judging potential, so we'll probably trust the ones that have got the best of judgment. But 3-star ability still makes him first choice. He'll replace Broom, jump above Cook in the pecking order, and I think he's going to have a very good season for us. My hope is obviously we'll be able to loan him in for a few years. He'll never make it a Stoke and then we can go and sign him, but at this rate we might be growing a bit more quickly, so let's not worry about that for now. And then finally, Chet Dozie Ogbene, a brilliant player that we've managed to get in on a free. 2,600 a week, now we're the 3rd highest paid player at the club, the highest paid of all the permanent additions. He'll be competing with Joe Thompson on the left wing, can also cover up front and on the right if desperately needed. 3-star ability, 3-star potential, 28 years of age, a really solid player. Over 150 appearances for Rotherham at Championship and League One level, and they've probably replaced him with the likes of Kane Williams as they're trying to get younger players now they're back in League One. But a really good player, has played at the higher level for half of his career. That's all we can ask for really from these sorts of players. He's also played in the Championship for Brentford too, so he's got so much experience at this level and above, and he's going to be a crucial player for us in the next couple of years, and I hope he can compete to start regularly for the club. So with all of that done, let me know in the comments who you think the best signing is so far, who you think is going to be a superstar, who might flop for us this year. If I show you the first team, just so you can see where we're still a little bit short. We've still got a striker on trial, we're trying to get in a second choice striker. I don't trust Manny Cook to be first choice backup, to be honest. He might have to do so at the moment. He's still not got the best personality though we would like to see him reach his potential, and of course he has played around some of these players before. But John King's still there, as long as he's fit we don't need to panic. We have lost out on a number of other targets. We've not had enough money in the bank, so the likes of Sully Kai, recognisable names like that we've lost out on. Again, they wanted reasonable wages, but as soon as they got a big offer elsewhere, they ran off. We're of course desperate for centre-halves. We've only got the 2 lone stars at the moment. Barry Cotter of course can jump in if need be. Jake Hughes can cover centre-half as well as can Matt Smith, so I'm not quite as worried about it. But a long-term solution needs to be found, and I'd imagine we'll get one in the coming weeks and months. But aside from that, we're pretty well stocked at the moment. Maybe if a brilliant keeper came along we'd take them, maybe consider selling on Harry Campbell. But otherwise I'm really pleased with the squad we've got. I think we should be able to finish in mid-table easily, and maybe we can compete for the top half. Probably just consistency the issue. We've got a lot of young players in this squad, and even though we've managed to get in a few bits of experience, Ogbene at 28, of course Jonathan Mitchell at 30, and we've managed to get in Matthew Smith again, but a lot of them haven't had experience this summer, so we've got a lot of 20 and 21 year olds, quite a few teenagers in the squad too, so we are going to be unpredictable at times, and I'm sure we'll still have a few frustrating days. I've already lost out on Jordan Willis as a replacement centre-half. He went off to MK Dons for more money. We've got one more experienced one we're looking at, a 17-year-old from Aberdeen who's rated really well in terms of potential, and if we can get either of those in, they'll be good backup players for now. We just want to get someone to make sure we've got cover. But overall for me, a really exciting window, probably one step away from promotion still. Last year was all about staying up, this season about being in the top half or the middle of the table, and then next year we'll really push on for the top of the league. And of course we've got a bit of money in the club now as well, that helps out immensely, but with us still playing over at Crawley at the moment, it looks like it's going to be a while before we can solve that long term. We've got Peterborough in the first game of the season, that of course will be part of Sunday's episode. We'll have our first game of the year, talk about our tactic, try and look at a few more players that might be joining the club, and of course we'll look at the off the pitch news as well, finances, see what's going on in that regard. We're trying to get a senior affiliate, but it doesn't look likely at the moment. We might have one more coach joining the club by then too. But if you did enjoy this episode and another big transfer special at Dorking Wanderers, probably the biggest change we've seen in the summer so far, please do put a thumbs up on the video. I really do appreciate it. I enjoy the transfer special so much. I hope you do too. Let me know, of course, in the comments who you think the best signings will be, who you think the best players are going to be this year. John King's actually favourite for the Golden Boot in the division, and I think the media had us to finish in the top half, so I'll go and have a look to see that at the start of the next episode, where of course we'll also have our first game of the league season. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for daily FM20 content from both of my long-term stories. As we mentioned, we had a massive episode in the head coach yesterday, a very surprising job offer and a dream for most Football Manager players, and then on Saturday we'll have our first game from the new club there, before our first game of the season on Sunday with this one. It's such a big weekend on the channel for both series, and I hope you can come and join me for all the episodes. Finally, I'm part of a podcast that does matchday vlogs and interviews, and you can see the link to the matchday vlogs in the eye above. A massive thank you for your support on those ones. The numbers on some of them have been absolutely ridiculous, and we do appreciate your continued support and feedback, and I hope you continue to enjoy them as well. But a massive thanks for watching this one and your continued support of the series. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to see you next time for the start of the League One season, where all the optimism's in the air and we think we've got a good enough squad to compete.